Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reasoned Choice Media.
Welcome.
Negus.
What is the language of origin?
Ethiopian to Amharic.
What is the definition?
A king. It's used as a title of the sovereign of Ethiopia. Negus.
Could you use it in a sentence?
The Negus ruled Ethiopia until the coup of 1974.
Negus.
Andrew, would you say the word loudly for the judges?
Negus.
One more time.
Negus. N-E-G-U-S, Negus.
My nigga. Hey, what's up, my niggas? We also will say nigga please sometimes. We might say I wish a nigga would. And then sometimes it's just nigga. Can you all guess what we're talking about today?
Nigga.
Are you done cringing? Say with us, please, because this ain't just ratchet. We are also teaching. We have all experienced or heard about those moments where somebody white tries to take it too far and say the N-word. And we're not talking about like in the spelling bee niggas. We're talking about something like this.
One of my favorite bits is that when white people are rich, they're just rich forever and ever. Even their kids are rich.
Yeah.
But when a black guy gets rich, it's countdown to when he's poor again.
He's the blackest white guy I fucking know. And then all the negative things we think about black people, this fucker.
You're saying I'm a nigger.
Yes, you are the niggerest fucking white man I have ever.
Amazing.
I don't think he could do that.
So, you know, there are some people among us who even make it okay for white people to say this, but Oprah believes we shouldn't even say it.
It's impossible for me to do it because I know the history, and I know that for so many of my relatives whom I don't know by name, people who I am connected to, my ancestors, that was the last word they heard. They were being strung up by a tree.
And, you know, the thing that we have to also consider is the nation's oldest civil rights organization and the largest, the NAACP, which I will remind everyone is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, also agrees with Lady O and even tried to bury the N-word in 2007 and gave it a whole funeral.
We're not going to do this N-word business anymore. It's time to stop. And we hope that our rappers, our media, the movie theaters, all of that, Hollywood, all of it, see what we're trying to do.
It is time that we make a change. It's time that we decide and what we want and demand it, because nothing is going to be given to us unless we get out here and let the world know this is not acceptable.
Well, that was in 2007. And before we cut to any more sound, I just want to ask my co-hosts how long they think the N-word stayed dead, or did it ever die?
It never died. It never died. That was kind of a ridiculous stunt, I think, you know, but it never died.
I think they
it
had
was
high
more
hopes.
than that.
You do?
Yeah, I think it was more than a stunt. I think for a certain generation of Black Americans, this thing cuts really deep. We still live at a time where our parents could have foreseeably had to exist through that term being used as a bludgeon tool, right? To level them, to make them feel small, to make them feel less than. And then comes the advent of, mostly rap hip hop, where it had a renaissance, if you will, and not just not a renaissance in its original fashion, but a renaissance in the sense that this is a word that was used to demean, to hurt, to cut deep, to the red meat. And we're going to take it, reform it, and put it back out there as a word of our own choosing, with a meaning of our own choosing, and the rest would be history. And I think we now find ourselves at a place where there's generational divides between how people walk away with a sentiment after they hear that word. My mother-in-law, my aunts, uncles is not a word you want to say around any of them.
There was also this debate around, I'm going to come to you, Tiff, but there's also been a long-standing debate around if there's a difference between the ER and the A.
Of course,
and,
obviously, yeah.
Right, and I think that's another thing, like which version of the word did we actually bury in 2007? I think that's also a distinction worth noting, but I want to hear what you're going to say.
Geographically, though, you can be in the South and hear a white person say nigga.
Yeah.
And it be intended with the same venom
as the ER.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And I'm just saying geographically.
I know what you mean. It becomes an accent issue then.
For sure.
But any vowel they end it with, they can't say it. But
I completely disagree with you about the generational thing. I think, we maybe look outside of our own immediate experience and family members. Every generation I know, my parents said the word. My grandparents said the word, so it's not necessarily generational. Even now, there are people who say the word and people who don't. People have strong opinions about it. I also kind of take issue with this idea that it's rooted in white supremacy. The word originated from the Spanish word, and the Spaniards, that's how they describe Black people. It wasn't even meant to be a slur at that point. It was just, this is what no more than you would call the Japanese, they call them Japanese, when the Portuguese and the Europeans settled Japan. So when white people then co-opted the word, they didn't even invent it. They co-opted the word, and along with many other things, they used it as a slur at that point. And so I don't center them in any point in my life. I don't center them in the language I use. I don't center them in when I say it, how I say it. I do think it is a word meant to be said privately. I am uncomfortable. We have some mutual friends who will say it in front of non-Black people. And I do think this is a family conversation and family talk. So I don't like, for myself and personally, for us to say it in mixed company. But in terms of it being a word that's said in Gen Pop and the population, I say it if you want to. And I don't mean to be dismissive of burying the word, but I think that was like in the early 2000s or the late 90s. Yeah, 2007 when that happened. Of all the things that was going on during that time, I don't think that burying the N word and imposing your, narrow view on it was the best use of time and resources.
But I think narrow, you use the word your narrow view, which I received as a pejorative.
Not your narrow view.
No. Yeah. But your narrow view being the people who wanted to bury it had a definition of what it meant to them. And I have to say that the majority understanding of that word, regardless of its Spanish origin, which has to do with the fact that that's the color.
Right. Black. Negro.
So, but nowhere ever did nigger get its definition from simply the color black. It was always from its very beginning, from its origins, as it relates to its application to us, used as a pejorative, as an insult, as a weapon.
It wasn't by white people, and it wasn't it's Spanish, yes, but it was actually the Latin word, not negro, but Niger.
Oh yeah.
So it wasn't even
it
wasn't even a pejorative. Like the people who made it one were white people here in America. They made it one.
Right.
So they stole the word and turned it into something ugly.
They bastardized it is what your argument is. And my argument is that regardless of its little known, little regarded origins, except for a particular country and maybe region of the world, by and large, the definition under which we understand it has a pejorative meaning and a diminutive one toward us, toward black folk, people of color. And if I ever understood it being spoken by them as a term of endearment toward me, I can't think of them.
No,
I can't think of them.
I don't think anybody's arguing that at all. I actually think that that you all aren't saying something too different. I think she's saying the Latin term Niger. What is it?
Niger.
Yeah, was one meaning, and then when white folks enslaved us, stole us, brought us here, they took it to mean something completely horrible and awful, like brute and wench. I think that before we get
to be adopted across the globe, French parliamentarians began to use the word as a pejorative.
But as it relates to what happened here, and along the transatlantic slave trade, to define and talk about black people. But when we bring it up to modern times, I do think it's important whether it's a bad experience or a positive experience, what you all's earliest memories of the N-word were, or memory. I can go if y'all need to think.
I'm pretty sure it was comedy.
Yeah.
Probably SNL. I remember because it didn't used to be a word that you couldn't say on TV.
Yeah.
The Jeffersons.
Yeah.
I actually do remember the Jeffersons, an episode of the Jeffersons, because it was something that was said on television. That's how common the word was. So it wasn't hip hop that resurfaced it. Like it's always been here. Even in music, Andrew, like the group War, and you think of, Moms Mabley, fact check me on Moms Mabley, but Millie Jackson, like there's always, every generation. I think I remember there was an episode of The Jeffersons, it was a rerun, and they, George Jefferson was, it was the overlap between them and Archie Bunker. And George Jefferson was saying, they wanted him to hire Edith to work at his dry cleaning business. And he said, if we do, something like the niggas that think the white folks that think she a nigga, and the niggas that think we bleach to help.
Oh my God.
But this was the thing. It was a dialogue with George Jefferson, and he used to also when he they were a spinoff. And when they had their own, he used to always call the guy, what's her name's husband, he's call him hunky all the time. And the white man would say back to him, well, you call me that, what if I called you nigga? And it's like, I wish you would.
And it blew up when you said that in the show, right? Like the response was, you're from the audience.
It wasn't, though. That's the thing. It was so, because they said it all the time.
So I take slight exception with the familiarity and the usage of the word in the late 70s, early 80s. Those were shows done by Norman Lear, and Norman was credited across, really across platforms, regardless of who the critic is, as using humor as a way to put a mirror up to the American people, and to Archie Bunker sitting on the couch and using terminology that everyone could laugh with because it was such an obvious characteristic of who he was, and therefore who one person's grandfather, he reminded him of somebody's grandfather. George Jefferson reminded us at least of an aspirational view of what we might do or be like if we were ever to come into wealth.
To move on up.
But I didn't know anybody who had moved on up in that way. And so it was in many ways aspirational, but it wasn't ubiquitous across television, the usage of it. That's what made his work so noteworthy and exceptional, is that it was so rare. And he used, so this is mirroring technique as a way to ease the conversation and make it more comfortable and not a third rail.
So, but on this, and I do want you to reflect on your earliest memory of this, but mine kind of dovetails with Tiff. I remember my parents listening to Richard Pryor records, and he said it all the time. And he said it with the ER all the time. Yeah. And my parents, like, I'm going to get in trouble. Mom, don't get mad. It's the truth. My mom, if my dad says she didn't like, he would call him that. Like, or even if they were joking, like, she would be like, listen, nigga, and they would fall out laughing.
Right.
So, like, I associated the N-word for a long time just with comedic moments. Like, I didn't know that you couldn't say it. For example, on my first communion day, because I was baptized Catholic, had first communion, had first repentance, or whatever it's called. I didn't call it first repentance. Now I'm Pentecostal. I don't know what the other word was called. Anyway, we had to go see the priest, and you tell him what you did wrong. Anyway, yes, whatever it is. But it's a name for it. First reconciliation, that's what it was. First communion day, I had a cat. We had all the family over the house. This is my dad's fault. We had all the family over the house, and I couldn't get to the cat. We had the elders at the house, too. And I said, come here, you little bastard. I did not know, just like with the N-word, that bastard was a bad word. My dad said it all the time. And this is my point. My dad and my mom were mortified, but like, I was like, how was I supposed to know you guys say it all the time? Then they were more mortified. But my point is, I feel like it's not that different with the N-word for me, for my experience growing up. Of course, with the Black history parents I got, you learn quickly after that.
Right.
That,
I think, I'm thinking about, I grew up a lot of my younger years in my grandmother's household, and they were much older than my dad's grandparents. My grandparents, when I was growing up, my mom's parents were in their 70s, 80s, but a very religious Pentecostal household. And a memory I have very clearly is my grandmother, I mean, just backhanding one of my brothers, my second oldest brother, who used the word in the house, and it was as close to blasphemy as you could come. Like in my grandmother's house, we couldn't play "I Declare War" because cards were of the devil. They were not supposed to be in the house. So I think in some ways we do have slightly different experiences because of in the ways in which we were reared and where and so on and so forth. So I do in some ways think there's a generational element, but I also think there has always been, at least amongst us, a familiarity with the word and some sub-ownership of it that didn't mean what the pejorative intended, right?
For sure.
The pejorative definition of it was. But my honest thought is that I have used it and use it with friends and close company, and we almost never have necessarily a positive, it's like you did something, messed up, and now or you've done so. But it's in love, it's in care of each other, but it's not.
Andrew said it's an accountability word.
Can be.
All right, y'all. So we got to get some commercials in. Stay tuned. I'm about to mess y'all up a little bit, and that is growing up in Seattle.
Yeah.
It's very multicultural, and there are some constituencies in Seattle, at least high school, middle school for me, that grew up so closely with us, particularly a lot of Filipino kids who said the N-word, and we didn't think anything of it. In New York, you'll see a lot of times Dominicans,
Latinos,
Puerto Ricans, and of course we know that slave ships stopped in different locations.
Absolutely.
Dominicans are black.
Brown, period.
They could be, but they also might not be. They could be indigenous, right? Or have some
Cuba.
blend there.
There's a distinction.
Right. But I'm saying there's some of that, and people have called me, and I'm like, you're right. I'm a whole hypocrite there, but there is one thing that I want to point out here, and that is that some rappers, including Pulitzer Prize winning Kendrick Lamar, disagree with Lady O, disagree with Burry and the N-word, disagree with your grandma, not Black Andrew, but White Andrew at the beginning of the episode spelled it out. And of course, Kendrick is on that same thing. He said with royalty, and that's how he would like to remix and reinterpret the N-word.
Yeah, and I think that's why I was saying it's a narrow perspective to bury it. I think if you choose not to say it, then don't say it. Yeah. But it's just a crazy thing to me that somebody within community would tell. I mean, I'm a big live and let live person. It's like, if it offends you, then don't say it.
Yeah.
But don't tell me, because we're in the same community. So within our community, I respect your understanding of the word and how it impacts you, but respect mine. And I think that's the what we have to show up as. I think the question of who gets to say it, J-Lo got in a lot of trouble when she did the song with Ja Rule. And, she's Puerto Rican from the Bronx, and I know people feel a way about her now, but she had that song with Ja Rule, and she was saying, I tell them niggas mind their business, but they don't hear me though. And people outside the tri-state were like, whoa, what? You don't get to say that. So I think the question of who gets to say it and how it's received, even that, I couldn't imagine telling somebody like, you shouldn't be offended or you should be offended. If you're offended, then say it. Some people, I think Mariah Carey was asked about it. Like, would she say the word? And Mariah Carey identifies herself as Black. So she feels like, yes, I can say this. She's white presenting when she first came out. We didn't know a lot about Mariah Carey. People felt a way about that answer. So I don't know. I think if everybody would do what they want to do and mind your business about what other people want to do and get to the real important things that are happening in our community outside of who gets to say the N-word, I think that's better.
But
although
I
do love this conversation.
Do we own do we own the N-word?
Yes.
We own nigga. So when you say mind your business, you talking about mind the community's business, or are you saying if a white person walking down the street?
Mind your business. Now, but that's for community.
Black
Again,
people, you're specify. You're not talking about allies. You're not talking about
No. All of this is in community. Yeah. I censor us at everything. Can I play the Ta-Nehisi?
Well, I was gonna. Yeah, I wanted to say this too, Andrew. I don't know if you wanted to weigh in here, but I think that there is an intense fascination with who can say the N-word and us consistently being interrogated about who can say the N-word. And you want to go ahead?
So to that question, Ta-Nehisi was asked by a student, and she was saying she doesn't say it. And there are like, these hip hop songs and people say it, and she wanted his opinion on white people saying this word. And he gave her an answer that I thought was pretty brilliant and summed up how I feel. Let's take a listen.
Sense of what it might be.
Shut up, AG.
When you're white in this country, you're taught that everything belongs to you. You think you have a right to everything. You have a right to go where you, and you're conditioned this way. It's not, because your hair is a texture or your skin is light. It's the fact that the laws and the culture tell you this. You have a right to go where you want to go, do what you want to do, be however, and people just got to accommodate themselves to you. So here comes this word that, you feel like you invented. And now somebody will tell you how to use the word that you invented. Why can't I use it? Everyone else gets to use it. You know what? That's racism that I don't get to use it. That's racist against me. I have to inconvenience myself and hear this song and I can't sing along? How come I can't sing along? You know what I mean? And I think, for white people, I think the experience of being a hip hop fan and not being able to use the word nigga is actually very, very insightful. It will give you just a little peek into the world of what it means to be black.
I think he summed it up perfectly.
Powerful.
So perfectly, I don't even have anything else to add to it.
Powerful.
Well, mic drop moment from Ta-Nehisi, but before we drop it all the way, what'd I say?
He gets so it's Ta-Nehisi for a lot because you're not the only one. Ta-Nehisi Coates is how you say it.
Ta-Nehisi. Definitely not trying to N-word our good brother today. But I was gonna say,
depends on what you made.
No, I know. Yes. Why can't I use it? So speaking of who can't use it, though, we are clear that we don't think white folks should be able to. But Kendrick Lamar, on one of his diss tracks recently, Euphoria, he said he don't like when Drake said it. He said, "We don't want to hear you say nigga no more." And it was I think the query really is it because he's biracial? Is it because he's Canadian? Is it because he's corny? Or is it just because? Like, I think
Tell us how you feel.
No. I'm just asking the question.
Of course.
Well, how do you feel about Drake saying it?
I don't care about Drake saying it. I think one of the things that's remarkable, there was a and I didn't cut it for this because it was too long. It was so interesting. A YouTube series where Black folks sit with Africans and African Americans sit with Africans, and they ask the question on if they say nigga and why. And for some people, they think it is a unique experience for Black Americans to be able to say this word, to have ownership over this word, and not Black people throughout the diaspora. That is not my perspective on it, because I think Black folks who were coming from the continent here were called that. And whatever it is, whatever we can own and do own, I'm good with that. Whether that's land, whether it's the word nigga, whether it's money, whatever it is, the highest office of the land, I'm good with that. I just think that it really taps into the perception on Drake's psyche, and that is what he was calling attention to. There are people who are Black appearing or Black adjacent, and they get to do things with us, like us, even when they don't care about us. And I think that was really the question. I don't even think it was so much about Drake as it was like people like you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even, honestly, I don't care at all about white people's thoughts on the word nigga. Like, I just don't censor that perspective. It has
I was talking about Kendrick and Drake.
No, but when you were talking about the YouTube video that you wanted to play about these white kids asking each other like how they feel about it.
No, I'm sorry. I said Black Americans and Africans.
Oh, my bad. I thought you were saying white kids, Black Americans, Africans.
This
okay,
was like,
that changes it.
Yeah, no. I was like, what you answering?
My bad. I thought you were saying it was a bunch of white kids. I was
No. This was literally Africans from the continent. Like,
yes,
this woman was born here, but her parents are from Nigeria.
It is a unique experience.
And Black Americans. And I was saying, do Black people throughout the diaspora own this word?
Yeah.
Or is it a Black American owned word? And I was saying, I don't have an opinion on that. I don't care one way or the other because we were all impacted by that.
Hip hop has taken it to the continent for sure.
Oh, yeah. But also the slave ship that went there first took it to the continent. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were called that.
But that was I think the slur. I mean, the way that we use it. Hip hop has taken it there.
Yeah. Or maybe Richard Pryor records.
I do think, I think early in the conversation, we said that there are very, very important and vexing things to the community. the language piece, I think we've pushed past. There was a heated moment of it, right, in the 90s, largely in competition and in contrast to what was happening in the growth of hip hop and the popularity of hip hop, which transcended just black fans. And it became highly popular, concerts attended by majority white audiences, so on and so forth. Made this into a heated tenor. But I think the waves have calmed a little bit. I kind of feel like if I got out of the head games between Kendrick and Drake on that, what Kendrick might have been referring to is there is a unique Black Southern American relationship with the word. And not only is this brother not Black Southern or have that experience, it's similar to what Obama faced about not being Black enough. He was not brought up in the traditional Black American experience. He was in
Drake's daddy from Memphis.
That may be the case. He was born and reared in Canada.
Yeah, I just was telling you that.
Yeah.
So some of that is at play. I hear this. I think that we might need to consider a part 2.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that we should note to close this is, dear white people, we don't want to hear you say nigga no more. Y'all can bury it. Carry on. Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome.
Thanks for listening, y'all. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, and tune into our regular episodes every Thursday. Welcome home. Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reasoned Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.